What's up everyone? Today is going to be my wrap up for April. It was not a good reading month for me at all. I'm not sure what went wrong. I'm not sure if it's me, if it's the books. It's probably me, I mean, honestly. But I am really excited to get started on my May TBR and just be done with the books that I had a hard time with this month. So I actually was a good girl and I put in all my Goodreads reviews for the last 2 months today. I do want to get in the habit of writing my reviews right after I'm done reading the book because I just think that that would be the best in just being able to remember the information and giving my full thought out process. I did update my story graph with all of the books that I've read as well. So I'm actually going to pull my stats from the story graph because they have just like free stats for you, and I've been meaning to do this every month and I keep not doing it. So today we are going to do that. Here in April, I read a total of 6 books, which is terrible. Like, I feel like I should have read a lot more. That was 2,123 pages. I really like that the story graph kind of pulls up your moods. So it looks like dark is my mood, okay? We are not shocked. We are not shocked. It looks like mysterious is the biggest mood, dark is the second, and then tense is the third big one. And then we got some emotional in there, some reflective, and some adventurous. Then 83% of the books that I read were fast-paced and 17% were slow-paced. Most of the books that I read were between the 300 and 499 page mark. I actually don't read like big books, so that's usually where they fall into. 17% of them were nonfiction and 83% were fiction. And for genres, it looks like 5 of the books were considered thriller, 2 of the books were considered mystery, and then we had some self-help, health, and contemporary in there. Now for star ratings, wow. I have 2 1 stars, 2 2 stars, 2 3 stars, and you guys see what I'm talking about now. So bad. My average rating for the month was 2.0. Now, in saying that though, I have been doing a really good job. All the books that I read this month were from my Reading to Zero shelf. I also unhauled a big chunk of them, and I tried reading 2 books that I ended up DNFing. So my DNFs for the month, one was Mirrorland and the other was The First Day of Spring. I tried to read about 50 to 100 pages of both of those, and I was listening to the audiobooks for both, and I just could not get into them. Mirrorland was definitely much more magical realism and fantasy, and with The First Day of Spring, it was very heavily like, I think it was like Scottish or Irish. I just could not get into either of those. So I did unhaul those as well as part of my DNFs. I'm gonna pull up the other ones I unhauled because I did add them to my Pango bookstore because you can buy them from me if you would like. So the ones that I unhauled were With or Without You by Caroline Levitt, The Minders by John Mars. I just saw so many comments on my TBR video and I just kept not wanting to pick it up. So you know what? I decided, why am I struggling through this? I'm just going to go ahead and unhaul it. So that one's unhauled. I also unhauled Rock Pools, Every Last Secret, The Nesting, and Within These Walls, which I don't think I had previously unhauled that one. I think that was this month. So yeah, those were the books that I decided to unhaul. So left over on my shelves total, I have 31 books for my Reading to Zero challenge. That is counting the books that I'm reading in May as well as the rest that's on my shelf. So my goal is to be done by the end of July. So it will mark exactly a year of me doing Reading to Zero. And I definitely think I will be able to hit that because that means I just have to read like 15 books every single month. And it's going to be summer, which usually means that I have a lot more time in the summer because I don't work in the summer. Now, I will be pregnant, we're hoping. My transfer is on May 5th. And so by May 15th, I will know if I'm pregnant. And as soon as I get that word, I have like 10 pregnancy books to read and I am so excited. Like, I love information books and I cannot wait to read the pregnancy books that I have. So I will be throwing those in monthly as well, but we're gonna get this done. We're gonna get my Reading to Zero done, and then I have a super big surprise for what I'm gonna be doing after Reading to Zero. I am super, super excited about it. I'm currently working on it, doing prototypes and stuff. So stay tuned for that. We're gonna start out with My Wife is Missing by DJ Palmer. This was actually an ARC that was sent to me by the publisher. Thank you so much. and I read part of it actually in the end of March, and then I read the rest of it in April. I ended up giving this book 3 stars because I was very intrigued about it. It was actually pretty fast paced. It kept you on your toes, and it kind of felt like Stillhouse Lake, where it was that constant like, oh my gosh, like, are you gonna get away from your husband kind of thing? You know, wife on the run. Think about that. So it starts out with the husband coming back from getting pizza in New York City to the hotel room. So it turns out that they like went on this family trip in order to help heal their marriage, family, whatever. And when he comes back, his wife is missing along with his kids. So he immediately thinks that they are kidnapped, but the book switches POVs. So we actually do hear from the wife / mother's side of things. And she intentionally left him because of deep, dark secrets that we don't know about. Every thriller in a nutshell, right? The rest of the book, we are reading from both perspectives, trying to figure out why she left. Like, is he evil? Why is he saying really weird things where you're like, why are you saying that about yourself? Like, are you actually evil? And then we go on this like major hunt / chase of husband trying to find wife. So like I said, it was fast paced, it was thrilling, but I eventually started getting irritated that the whole book was just secrets and I wasn't being given anything. I wasn't being fed any like, you know, I wanted more than breadcrumbs. I needed like, you know, half a slice of bread, you know? By the time I got to the end, it was kind of all thrown at you and it felt very far-fetched in my opinion. I also didn't really like the ending where it was like, I can't explain it because it's a spoiler, but that was my thoughts about it. Okay, so then I read Falling by TJ Newman. I actually thought I was going to like this book, but I ended up giving it 2 stars for a few different reasons. It is, again, a fast-paced, short airplane thriller. So this pilot, he gets a like video call while he's on the airplane, and it is this man who has his wife and his child like tied up, and this man is like, you need to crash this plane with 140 people on it or else your wife and kids are going to die. And the pilot's like, I'm not gonna do that. You're not gonna kill my family and I'm not gonna crash the plane. And I'm like, okay. So the rest of the story is literally just that. It is he going to crash the plane or is he not going to crash the plane? It didn't really have any twist or any mystery behind it. It was just like, here's what the book is about and read about that. That was it. There wasn't anything that you were like, oh, really? That's what's going on? Like that? So I did find myself kind of bored after I realized that that was the story, like that was it. But then one of my main problems with this book is the fact that it is not very realistic. And I know people get so mad at me sometimes for saying like, well, you're reading a book, Jackie, like why does it have to be realistic? That is why I don't read fantasy and like sci-fi and stuff like that, because in my brain, I am reading fiction. And one of the reasons why I do read a lot of memoirs, because if you're gonna tell me that this guy is choosing whether or not he should crash the plane, then I want it to be, oh my gosh, what would I do in that situation? What would people actually do in that situation? Like, give that to me on a plate. And so it does frustrate me that the pilot, his wife that's tied up, all of the air flight attendants, like no one was losing their mind. Everyone was calm, cool, and collected. Everyone was super brave. Everyone was the hero. And that is not how real life would be. Could you imagine being on a plane and something like that happening? And so I think because emotions are very important to me within books, I want to feel like I am part of the story. I want to feel like I'm the character. I want to feel like I'm the pilot. I want to feel, what would I do in that situation? Would I make the same decisions that they did? I didn't feel that way in this book. So that was a big factor into why I didn't love it, because it just kind of felt like a fairy tale with a really nice, pretty ending. So Lena, please don't come at me for like butchering your book. I'm sorry. Next up, I read Dark Roads by Chevy Stevens. So this was my Patreon buddy read / book discussion book of the month. We're actually going to discuss it tonight in our Zoom. So that should be super fun. I gave this book 1 star. Part of that is because because it was definitely a young adult book, even though it is classified as an adult thriller on Goodreads. I think that that is totally wrong. I mean, pretty much everything about this book is young adult, which I probably wouldn't have picked it up because I know that I don't like young adult thrillers. They just seem a lot more immature to me, and it's kind of unbelievable when like nobody could find the killer for 15 years or however long it would be, and then it's like, oh, here comes this teen and they figure out everything. Like, they're way smarter than the police. That is one of my biggest pet peeves of like young adult thrillers. But a big thing about this book is that in the author's note, Chevy Stevens writes that this book is based off of the Highway of Tears, which is a like highway where Indigenous women have gone missing or been murdered. And she says that she wrote this book because she wanted to bring justice for them, like have a peaceful ending for them and kind of represent that. And she didn't do any sort of the thing. So the problem that I had is I was going into this book thinking, okay, I'm gonna learn about this Highway of Tears. Like, this is gonna be really interesting because it's based on a true story. No, none of that was happening. It was just, here's the Highway of Tears. Let me say a few sentences about this, but not actually really tell you the importance of it, and then bypass all of that, and then here's a young adult survival story. That's why I rated that one star. I just didn't love anything about it. I had a lot of problems with it. I probably would have DNF'd it if it wasn't part of like my actual Patreon. And if you wanted to hear like more of my thoughts, I actually have a reading vlog with spoilers. I'll put it right here so you can watch, and I actually tell you pretty much everything that happens in that because there are spoilers. So if you just wanted to watch that and bypass reading it, I got you. Next up, I read The Family by Louise Jensen. This actually I read because I was part of Jesse's Sleep When I'm Dead book club. So over on Jesse's channel last night, we actually had the live show. So we read The Family by Louise Jensen, and this was a book that I picked. Like, it was on my shelf. Jesse always is really nice and lets her co-host pick the book. And I had picked it because, I mean, I owned it, duh. But I also picked it because it had this like cult community vibe to it. And so, you know, I like those types of books, and I was interested in, you know, hoping it was gonna be really good. The problem is though, is that I have read one other Louise Jensen book and gave it 1 star, and then I DNF'd a Louise Jensen book also. I have a really, really hard time with her writing style, but that was actually years ago, so I didn't really remember that, but now I know, like, Louise Jensen is not for me. I rated this book 1 star, mostly because of the writing style. It's very poetic and way too descriptive and way too flip-floppy. The multiple POVs, they sounded very similar. It was between Laura and Tilly, which is mother and daughter. But then I felt like the author didn't do a really good job with, there were like 5 mini stories going along. So the synopsis is like, hey, you're gonna be reading about like a cult or community. And my favorite part of the book was the few pages where it was talking about, okay, like they're bringing this person into the cult and they're explaining like, this is the community. But then so many things happen that are so different, like, you know, age gap, taboo, romance / grooming situation. And then you've got, is this a death or is this a suicide or is this a murder? And then you have, are my parents my actual parents? Like, there was just so many different things going on, and I could go on and on. So if you want to hear more of my thoughts, you can actually go watch the live show because we actually go over like the synopsis. We play some games and stuff, which is really, really fun. But then we also go into depth of like spoilers and stuff. So if you are interested in hearing more about that, you can go check that out there. Yeah, just not for me. Not for Jessie either. She DNF'd it, so. Okay, next up is Not Her Daughter. This is a thriller about kidnapping, which I actually do love the kidnapping trope, and I rated this 2 stars. It definitely could have been better if it was written better, and I think that the trope is promising, like the concept of it is very promising, but I'll go through some of the things that kind of irritated me about it. So this is about Sarah, who is a successful entrepreneur, and she has actually had like a tough time in her childhood. Her mom like left at a really young age, and she was kind of abused as well. And as an adult, she actually sees this child named Emma who is being like abused by her mother. Like her mother is just super mean to her, even out in public. The mother's name is Amy, and we actually read from the perspective of Amy as well. And Amy does not bond with her child. Like she doesn't really love being a mother. She kind of despises it. She just cannot stand her child, Emma. So we find out that Sarah actually kidnaps Emma because she's like, well, I could be a way better mom to Emma than her own mother could. And we spend this time with Sarah having kidnapped her and like taking care of her and kind of like on the run, trying not to get caught. Emma's actual dad is married to her actual mom, and he's like, oh my gosh, like our daughter is missing. And so they call the police to try to figure out where did their daughter go. And it unravels obviously some of the abusive tendencies that the mom had, but you also hear from the mom's perspective of she's kind of glad that Emma is gone. Like she's like, you know, I think this worked out really well. So there is this kind of like moral dilemma in the story, which I really enjoyed. But the problem was that, oh my gosh, the ending was very, very much so unrealistic. And I was kind of upset that I wanted that moral dilemma like talked about a little bit more, almost like in depth, like a Jodi Picoult book. I guess that's the problem, is now that I've gotten into Jodi Picoult, I'm like wanting that, like almost like the court system where it's like, this is this side and this is this side, and you're like, oh my gosh, like which side do I agree with? I kind of wanted that. I needed a little bit more of that rather than just a back and forth kind of domestic thriller kind of feel. Then the way it ended is just not how it would end in real life. I mean, that would just never end that way. Okay, that is it. I've been talking way too much, and for 6 books, this video should not be that long, so I'm sorry. Hopefully you got to the end and you made it. Hopefully you liked it. That's it. I hope I have a better reading month next month. I hope you had a good reading month this month, and if you didn't, I hope you have a better one as well, and I will see you all very soon in another video. Bye everyone.
Like being on my own, I could use someone to hold, and I've been trying to fill the void, but my bed is getting cold, 'cause I don't have you, I don't have us, at least not anymore.